Hello everyone. It's brilliant to be here tonight. It's the third Rooted Talk. Yeah, the third Rooted Talk in a series of Rooted, and it's a very powerful stop, as you can see. It just has its own energy going on. But tonight we're here to talk about the relationship to ancestry and our ancestors, and what we might find there that helps us to deal with a more difficult legacy. Nobody is kind of alive right now without having a level of trauma to deal with, and our collective trauma and our sense of our collective trauma is very big at the moment. So I'm here with some beautiful people to talk about that journey, what going back and what we can do to bring a bit of a collapsing of time, in a sense, really. All the gifts that we have that we can now work with in this space, in the here and now, to really kind of heal ourselves, because this is the most kind of fundamentally the most important work that we can do for ourselves, for each other, for the community, for the world, for the planet. We have to now align in a very different way. So my guests this evening are Danielle, Diza, Ifakeme, Osage Jive, Williams. Did I do it? Yes. Brilliant, thank you. And Nish and Harshal, who kind of come without surnames. I'm really sorry.
We've got long names.
You've got long names as well. But I've known you since you were quite wee, so they got lost along the way. So I do apologise. But yeah, give me your full names.
So in our culture, you kind of take your father's and grandfather's and all your ancestors' name as part of your name. So actually, I could say my name for a long time.
Yeah.
But the short version is Harshal Golshik Madasya. So that's my name, my dad's name, and then our family name.
And then I'll go by Nishan Parish, and then we've got Banji, Keshav, Raja, Giga, some others along the line.
Okay. All right.
So I guess you kind of remember all of them.
Yeah.
And that was drummed into us.
Remember the root.
Yeah.
Remember the root. So today, how do you all want to be known in this circle? What do you want me to call you? How do you want to be known?
I'm always torn between Danielle, my given name, and Diza, which is my self-given name. Diza is from the Supreme Alphabet, Divine Zigzag Zig, Allah. And Danielle means God is my judge. So you can take your pick which one appeals to you that you'd like to address me by.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go Harshal.
Harshal?
And I'll go with Nishanti,
Nishanti.
which is like the two halves of my name, all together.
Thank you. And my chosen name is Binky. So that's going to be me today. I have a very complicated name story, but it's not for now. That's for another time. Danielle, I think you're going to kick us off with a little bit of introduction to what you do, and then some exercises just to get us all kind of into the space together, which would be brilliant.
Yeah. As the concept and the meaning of today is about being rooted, I thought it would be good to do a rooting, grounding kind of exercise. But maybe first to bring myself into the space and name who I am and what I do. You've correctly and rightly introduced me, and I will not necessarily call my name again, but I will say that in terms of the offerings I give is through counselling and psychotherapy, it's through consultation, it's through academic work, it's through personal development and spiritual consultation and support, and also through performing arts as well, as specifically movement and spoken word. And I also have a background in youth work, actually over 10 years. That was actually my start in kind of community healing work. And I guess for me, healing and being rooted is also about kind of understanding who you are, what you need, where you come from. And that's also where the spiritual and ancestral aspect of my work comes in. I'm also a trainee priestess in an African traditional religion known as Ifa and Orisha tradition, or Isheshe. And this is a big part of my work that I'm bringing together, which is how to combine Western psychology with African spiritual traditions and technologies, because I think especially for people of the diaspora, our brain and our development is very much shaped by, I mean, most places in the world because of colonization are shaped by the Western psychology. So it's important to understand and know how to navigate through that world, but also to be rooted into something that has always found a way to continue and drives through us, and always, but we're not always really able to access it in conscious ways. So kind of bringing that conscious knowledge back is part of my work. So I guess just to kind of call in each other into the space, my offering right now is to just be in breath together, and I'm going to throw out some prompts to contemplate as I do that. Within the prompts, you are welcome to either say out loud or quietly to yourself a response to some of the prompts that come up. So, just take a moment. Okay. So, if you can just start by noticing your toes, and we'll start with a sigh out, and then breathe in through the nose. And as you do that, just tap each toe individually into the ground. So you sigh out, tap and inhale through the nose, and then sigh out again, tapping into the ground and breathing in through the nose. Good. And now find your own rhythm and your pace of breath. In through the nose, can be out through the nose or the mouth. Soft gaze. You can close your eyes if you want, but you don't have to. And just zone in to your connection to the ground. Feeling gravity, feeling what you will consider your center. See if you can imagine these roots actually coming out of you and traveling into the core of the earth. Feel that journey. You can feel it with your mind's eye, or imagine what the sensation of that would be like. And then start to feel an energy from the core of the earth travel up. And it's going to travel up the body, until it reaches and spreads through the legs, the torso, the arms, shoulders and neck, into your face. And notice in this moment any grips of tightness and tension, and see if you can ease. Imagining this energy is creating expansion. It's creating more room for you to be and express in this moment. Sighing out if you need to support the process. Feel energy hitting a point between your eyebrows, the back of your neck, and the top of your head. Imagining these points meeting. Now encouraging light from source, from above, to travel down and create even more space of healing streams of grace to support you at this time. Notice the sounds, the sensations in and external to you, your temperature, any smells, even the feeling of the chair or your clothes. See if there are particular sensations that draw you in, that feel soothing or interesting. And go to these sensations if you feel that you need to connect back when you feel activated at any point. So what I mean by activated is if you notice a spike of energy that feels maybe like nervousness, anxiety. Try and find soothing sensations. So now the prompts that I have to offer you are: what is your name? You can speak it quietly to yourself or out loud, or in your head. What is your name? What is the meaning of your name? It is okay if you do not know. The meaning might be what you have taken it to mean, or what the root word is. Speak this out loud in your head, quietly. Who named you? And what is the origin of this name? Where has this name travelled from? What is the journey that has taken place for you to be named? What are the lands of those who have come before you? So you may have some answers, you may have more questions. It's okay, whatever has come up. Now gently, when you're in time, start to connect with your toes again with some movement. Deepen the breath and gently return to the space in your own time. If your eyes are closed, you can gently blink them open. Welcome. Thank you.
So, yeah, we've lost us some talking now, but it's going to be very gentle, I think. So, that's something has taken us all to a place which is kind of, you know, our name has been a thing, actually, since we entered the room for all of us. And that little journey back to thinking about the origin of that name. Sorry, I'll speak louder. in a way that is beyond actually who has given it to you. It's what has given it to you, and I think that may be what that meditation was kind of alluding to. It has come from something which is much bigger than we can actually name in a parent or whatever. It has in itself. It has a whole lineage, and I think that's what we're kind of here to talk about and what we find there. In my little opener, I did talk about the kind of where we find ourselves now. And we find ourselves, I think, in a place where we are recognising levels of individual trauma that are kind of coming together into this very, very kind of volatile collective trauma at the moment. And for me, I see this as a moment. It's a very important moment in time. It's a moment of reckoning where the work we have to do is really to kind of connect all right the way back to some very kind of fundamental places where we will find gifts, information, knowledge that is going to help us kind of work through and work with this. And this is the source to our healing, which is in a mental space, it's in an emotional space, but it's also very much in a physical space. And these three things are very, very much connected. So you may have come here to talk about one thing, but I think what we find is that we're talking about all of these things. So I'm going to start, Danielle, with you, and kind of how you come to be doing what you're doing now. What did you see?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think where to begin. So I think well-being became of concern to me as a teenager, because that was the first time that I really battled with well-being, with my wellness in a very conscious way. I guess what would clinically be called depression and anxiety, although I think that it was a struggle for GPs to even name that, especially when you're under the age of 18 or 16, and to get the support you need. In that sense, at least that's what I found in my journey. I found that in a lot of my experiences growing up, even if I think about the way my brain works, when we think about neurodiversity, I think there's always been a way that my experience has not quite met the threshold of we're going to throw in some support for you. And so that meant that it became a journey that I had to kind of spearhead for myself and advocate for myself with. And I think for me that involved fitness and movement, because I was always very passionate about dance, and I had come away from that, and so I started to reconnect with practices that were similar, and I began kind of entering into spirituality through plant healing, through movement practice. So I found yoga as well. I think I entered in through very new age ways, which I have a complex relationship with now, but it was an entry point, I think, for a lot of people who maybe come away from the traditions that their family are in. For me, it was Christianity, and feel a severed connection from that, as in, you believe that there is more than you are experiencing in kind of like the material world, but like having an access in a particular tradition and way or religion is not quite meeting your needs. And so, I kind of did my own exploration, as well as eventually kind of getting mental health support through counselling, CBT, different forms. And I eventually found the kind of therapeutic work that helped me, which was, I think, humanistic, like person-centered counselling, where you just have the space to explore freely and just hear yourself speaking, essentially, and kind of find your own answers. And I think a combination of that, as well as my spiritual practices, made me want to, and then also an interest in psychology and like, why are humans like this? What's going on with us? All those kind of inquiries made me want to get into supporting work, like helping work. So for me, I was kind of like into youth work because I wanted to be the adult that I felt I needed when I was a teenager. I wanted to kind of be able to look out and spot, okay, this person needs this intervention, like I want to advocate for that, I want to support that, I want to kind of create interventions. And hold on, I'm gonna steer, I feel like it can easily stare off, so
Okay.
I feel like I just want to come back to the question.
Yeah. Oh, we'll come back. There's a couple of things in there which are really great. I think we all want to find the adult that we feel we've been missing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really, a lovely way to put it. I want to pose the same question to the two of you. So how have you come to be here, and what's driven you to the creation of En Route? And
Well, I guess growing up, I guess for us it's like, I feel growing up in London, you kind of become de-rooted, which is kind of like the start of anyone being and becoming. I think we grew up maybe a bit more ignorant of foods that we cherished as home food and didn't celebrate outside of the home space. And now, that full circle is kind of seemingly being achieved by the fact that we're putting out foods that we may have only eaten in the home, not even communicated elsewhere, now that we're offering out to people, which feels a grand sense of like full circle and kind of creating that route that we needed as a connection. I think for ourselves both, like traveling abroad brings like a further, Harsh will travel a lot in India, in that like post-school kind of period where things can kind of go a couple of ways. And for myself, I traveled a lot in South America and kind of found my own Indian and Hinduism within myself in South America, in like Guyana and stuff like that. And those travels kind of made me bring a sense of like belief and understanding in where I'm coming from that wasn't necessarily celebrated growing up here in London in a Western school environment. And I think then the other emotion was just acknowledging health side of things, seeing a lot of our elders in our family, like a lot of health issues, and just all in around. And I think now all of our families are, and hopefully everyone all in around within our circles, which everyone is a part of, becoming healthier and eating more wholesome and seeing the benefits of those things in and around, again, just brings gratitude to the root of where it's coming from, because we're from Gujarat in India, which is the vegetarian state of India, originally speaking, but our parents are from East Africa, and they eat, grown up eating meat, we've grown up eating meat. So again, it was just, I think we've all been disorientated in our root from where we're from, where we're born, where our parents are from, where our children are going to grow up. But understanding that, I guess we're all from the same, kind of brings quite a lot of joy in that sense. And yeah, I think that gives a lot of drive and focus of where we're going, where we're coming from, and everything involved in the route and the journey.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, I think Nish touched on it. As we've grown up, we've become more and more appreciative of our culture, and that's been a big aspect. Like you said, a big moment for me was going to India and learning about my culture, learning why we celebrated certain things, because when we were younger, we both used to fight against doing certain things. If my friends came over and my parents were Gujarati to me, flip, because I'd feel embarrassed, or even eating like Indian food in front of them, eating with our hands.
Grandma eating with hands.
Yeah, like we used to like go crazy. But then as you get older and older, and you sort of realise where you're from, you appreciate that and you appreciate the culture and the root that you're from, to a point where actually I was teaching my parents about stuff, having been to India, and saying this is why we celebrate this is why we eat vegetarian this day. Telling them as a Hindu, this is what we should be doing, because actually that one of our roots is Hinduism. We were brought up Hindus, and actually I think modern day Hindus have lost their path as well, because they're potentially following the religion blindly, whereas they're forgetting some of the culture and the root. So En route is about that journey that we're on and we have been on, and we're trying to pioneer that to others.
Yeah. Okay.
Because everyone it's an individual journey.
It's an individual journey.
Everyone needs to find out where that base is, where that base root is.
I think what I'm getting from all of you is this, the dislocation, and actually we need to bring ways to reconnect into our everyday, and the combination of seeing food perhaps as a kind of spiritual element. You're taking it in. And understanding its sort of goodness in a very different way from just being satiated, and satiating a wound or an ill. So I think it would be really good to sort of talk about the difference between kind of how you can look at all of that, so you can look at, and just before we go any further, just to make the connection, the food at the back, which I hope you've enjoyed some of, and I hope you're going to enjoy more of, is Nish and Harshal's food. I'll do the proper ad later, but the important thing is to taste it and to feel it and to smell it and see kind of what it kind of brings you in its wholesomeness and its goodness. So that aside, we'll come back to the ad. But, the very important thing of actually sort of seeing food, eating as part of a kind of, one of the tools, one of the gifts that you have in your arsenal of tools. And I think, Daniel, you can probably talk a little bit more around the gifts that we have to work with when we're dealing with, what can at times be debilitating on a daily basis for us, and yet we get used to kind of being dislocated, disconnected, and we kind of think it's just us, and we've got to kind of struggle on and put on brave faces, which just kind of adds layers and layers and layers to actually what it is we're trying to deal with. So yeah, do you want to have a little moment talking about tools where you see the food in the connection?
Oh, me about food as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Food, that's a big one. I think it's interesting you were talking about culture and lineages, and I was making a lot of connections because I grew up with two different cultures. So my dad's side is Nigerian, and my mum's side is from Barbados and Jamaica. And so both my parents were born here, so I kind of came with this, I don't want to say fragmented, but just very mix and blend cultures, because I was in two different homes, but I also spent some of my childhood in Barbados, so very formative years there. But I had this memory, actually food memory, very early on of my dad's family, and I could see the root of the food. So I remember the first time I had cuckoo and flying fish, which is the national dish in Barbados. And I could remember eating ground rice and soup with my grandma, my dad's mum. And it was then that, I guess now I make the connection of, there was a part of me that was connecting that ancestry, connecting the dots of the diaspora and the West African and Central African roots that are there. Because I think a lot of us can speak to that, and there's so much of a journey of food and the way that it travels. Even within the Caribbean, you can see the stories, the migration stories there of the indigenous people, of the South Asian people, of the African people, and it's all in there. You know, we've got the curries, we've got the dishes like with the plantain, everything. And for me, that's been most powerful as I've gotten older to connect to, but also find my own way within it, because I think something that I've had to make peace with, and a big part of my identity and self is about integration, how you bring together all the different parts when you do experience multiple identities, and almost like being comfortable with that and not shying away from it. So for me, being comfortable with, oh, you know, there's this dish from Nigeria and I don't know how to make it, but I might make a fusion thing anyway and just, you know, mix it up in a way that is unique to me and is a way to bring on the tradition from where I am now and where I am centered in. So that's how I understand it currently.
I think that's a really important point, is to acknowledge the mix that we all are, you know, and you know, if we are of colour, then there is so much difference in that. There's so much difference in those roots and what we're bringing together, literally what we're bringing to the table. And part of, I think, what we experience is that feeling of sameness. But it's kind of not true, you know, the individual soul is the individual soul and it's on its own journey, I think, as we all kind of said. So, again, going back to the food, and to come back to what you've just been describing as we are all on a journey. And this is part of your journey to bring it back. What do you want people to experience?
I think the biggest important kind of words that you said there was like the bringing together and like the personal angle of it. I mean, in the world, generally speaking, we've got such a like focus on like judgment and like it's like, you know, in a question of authenticity, people are always ready to like judge, you know, is that authentic to you? But it doesn't really make a difference. Like, well, it makes a difference, but you can't judge because I don't
exactly.
know your root.
Yeah.
And I'll never know your root until I know you.
Yeah.
And that you can't judge to get to know someone. You have to come together. So I think that was quite key what you were saying. I think that's kind of for us, for myself. It's just like that's the end goal, is for people to get away from that kind of judgment side. You know, when you bring together, and maybe I remember at school when we were reading Chinua Achebe book, Things Fall Apart, and I made yam cakes. I'd never cooked yam when I was like 11 or 12, and it didn't go very well, but I just put Nutella on it in the school class, and everyone was alright with it. But I remember doing it, and I just thought, I don't know, I just did what I did. And for me, I think, you know, people are, again, on the perception side, people are scared of judgment, and they don't want to be judged. So we're going to get away from that, and people just do what they feel, because that's the best way to kind of like connect to your root, isn't it? It's a feeling. And I think one problem is that people are so disassociated from the root that they feel like lost as to where it starts. But I think maybe it's easier said than done, but I feel like for us, just like what feels right just goes. And, you know, for us, especially with our food concept, it's bringing a lot of our kind of elements together. I mean, from our travels, from our roots, from where we live, from people around us. And that's, like I said, just bringing together.
Okay.
Add to that, but maybe you wanted to say something first.
No, good.
I think just on top of that, I feel something that's been part of my journey is that, you know, as time develops and like maybe where there's so much that we're exposed to, our diets change and the way that our body receives things also changes, because I noticed that some food that may be like native to, let's say, my dad's side is like too strong or intense, or like the way that the diets have been formed over generations with family, some of the habits that have been formed over years are also too strong and intense, and there's also like a rewiring that has to happen of like, so one big thing for me, especially on my mum's side, like the Caribbean side, when you have Sunday dinner and you have like kind of all these carbs and heavy kind of foods, and the way that your stomach, like especially if you have sensitive stomach issues and things like that, it's like learning a good diet that works for you based on your traditions, and you will find something connected, whether it's ITAL cooking, and there will be people within the tradition. It might not be in your like actual family and lineage directly, but still connected to your culture, who have a different way of doing things that can support you in your health journey as well. I feel like that's important to share.
There is, okay, so that means really somewhere for everybody there is a route, and to try and kind of go back to that and kind of align with that route. I think a word that came up for me as you were all talking is using your intuition, finding your intuition. I mean, you've got to find it to use it, and that's, you know, not necessarily a kind of really simple thing, but I think one of the things that when you connect with food and you look at what you're eating and what you are drawn to is kind of making that discernment, is how much of what you're taking in is to comfort as opposed to heal. So again, for I think this is probably our last question before we kind of throw it out to everybody. But yeah, the difference between comfort and healing.
Yeah, it's like the idea of a big part of the movement, again, our sort of way we present our food and give our food out, is the fact that we feel food is a medicine, and therefore it should be a healing for everyone. When modern day, when you're eating, a lot of people, it's grab and go, on the move, and ourselves, we're so busy, we're guilty of that. And actually having like my morning routine, and Nish probably knows what sometimes I take long to get to the shop in the morning. I've got my morning routine, so even this morning, if you look for our text, I'm just eating my melon and mango, and then I'm coming in. So I have like my moment sitting down, having like a glass of water, and I have a coffee or tea or whatever it is in the morning, just connecting to the food and breaking your fast. Nish does a lot of fasting, like I said, like breaking your fast that first minute of the day is very important. Nish does a lot of fasting in general, but it all leads back to that conscious thinking of your intake, rather than just convenience, grab, go, quick, fast food. It's about multiple steps here, thinking about you eating that. Also bring, both you said before about coming together, and that's a big thing in our cultures. When you're eating, like you said, that Sunday meal, you're all coming together as a family, so it's a bigger thing than just thinking, I'm going to eat this bit of food. It's bringing everyone together, having a moment, thinking about where that food came from, how grateful you are for eating that plate of food, because we are very blessed to be able to eat, a lot of us, like more than once or twice a day, you know.
Yeah.
So having that gratitude is very important, I believe.
Thank you. Anything more on that, or should we just hear from our lovely audience about what's been important in some of the words that you've heard tonight? Tony.
Yeah, I've been listening. Very, very good, informative, and kind of like constructive point of view. But one of the things that stuck out for me is natural food, because GM is a big thing now. And that's one thing that people need to kind of like, you know what I mean, tap into and find out the natural food that's available for you to consume. Especially like SAD's case in Africa is like certain government is forcing people to use GM food, so the natural seed has been lost. Some countries haven't got the natural seed, so all they rely on is this GM food, and then to grow that, you need to kind of like acquire different things to grow that. And the thing that you require is destroying the land naturally.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we need to kind of look into.
I mean, you know, it's not great, but food is hugely political, and the way it's sort of been commoditised around the world, you know, there should be enough food for everybody. There is enough food for everybody. It's just kind of like in the wrong places, you know, and it's in the wrong places because of politics and grasping economy, really. But what we can do, and you're completely right about that, you know, seeds are being grown so that they resist everything and they just grow, but they've got kind of minimal nutrition in them, but you can just sell lots of it, you know. It's a very different deal. My particular bugbear is the price of organic food, which I think is just, I know there are reasons why, but I think it's absolutely horrendous because it's intrinsically unfair.
Yeah, so we actually went to a talk recently. One of our idols is this lady called Vandana Shiva.
Yeah.
She's like describes herself as like an eco-feminist warrior, but
Yeah.
she's had a war against GM sort of food and farmers, governments in India, against companies called Monsanto.
But it's saying, and she also just like, you know, projects those works from India going across to Africa, South America, and again, just coming against bodies that like are working against people to protect ancient grains, like you say. You know, I think before the wars, I don't think any of us would be eating the white flour, the white rice that is kind of put on, you know, especially like agriculture is just, that's what people eat, white rice, and we grew up with it. We don't eat it these days, we don't sell it in our restaurant, but you know, we use red rice and you know, there's grains, we can make these choices. The more time and effort we spend on the kind of grassroots of growing, which I guess is the aim and intention, you know, so I see a lot of them here, and whatever land we can use to kind of grow is important. I think with the cost side of things you're talking about, I think as well, is that I feel that obviously it is expensive, but certain things, when it's in season, it's not as expensive. Like,
Yeah.
to buy watermelon, like we've got organic watermelon, it's organic watermelon season right now, they're seeded, they're beautiful, they're tasty, they're scrumptious, they look beautiful. So I love my watermelon. But like, meanwhile, you can go to the supermarket and pay £4 for a watermelon that looks, tastes, and has no seeds. And in our heads, you think, oh, it's more expensive, but if you go to your market and get that organic watermelon, it's not going to cost you more per kilo.
Yeah.
It's also the age of convenience, which is like the biggest kind of, and the convenience is the biggest barrier, but I think that's where, you know, perfect time.
Yeah.
It's all about the seeds.
Yeah.
All about
Yeah.
the seeds.
It's not a fruit
I
if
was
it's not got a seed.
chatting to a Caribbean lady next door. She moved over to Cyprus from 2000 to 2010. And one of the things what she did say was having fruits over there, the seeds in, it's natural. Now they're taking it away from us. It's not natural. Like we said about the allotments, the vitamin C's from 2000, and I think it was 2010 to 10 years later, tomatoes. You have to eat 10 tomatoes to be the same vitamin C as from 2010. It's really changed. So I hear what you're saying. I'm thinking that's really good.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring in Ramon and Michelle Gabrieloff Parish. They had a recent workshop, Redefining Wealth and Power. It's about food justice and just having new sustainable systems around that. And I'm trying to find, there was a document that I shared recently with some people. Biochar sitting, Biochar sitting for environmental justice. There's like a document I can share, pass it on to you as well. And it's a guide for cities and communities. So places like this where it's a community space, it's just something that can support about, I think it's a particular technology to introduce to kind of, it says to regenerate soils, feed plants, heal toxic sites, clean water, generate energy and more.
That would be very
space.
very good to share.
The big thing I think is the, like you said, is the accessibility.
Yeah.
So we know, and education. So it's first of all educating. So telling kids that, or children, young people, everyone really, that is a real fruit, something with seeds, And a seedless grape, it's not a fruit because a fruit by definition
Has
has
seeds.
to have seeds. So like educating young people so that they know, but then how do we get the young people to eat that? I used to be a teacher in Streatham, and we'd do free fruit Fridays. It's something that actually we started at en route in our first shop in 2016. But that's us, that's me buying it, that's us as a company buying it. The governments need to subsidise that sort of stuff, so
Yeah.
it's happening more and more. So.
Yeah.
And this is, we can ask for this. We can petition for it if we want to. And I think there is opportunity if we are, we're sitting in this space, we are talking about health, we are sitting in a youth centre, we are community all together. Some of us have connections. There is space on most corners. We need to talk to people about our right to grow the food that we want. But that I also, in saying that, I understand that feels like, well, I don't have time to do that. I've got X number of children to feed, I've got a job to do, I've got people to look after. How am I going to do that? What I think this time is inviting us to do, with all of the kind of pain and turmoil that we have to deal with, not in ourselves, but certainly in our community, and probably in ourselves too. We just choose what days we're brave enough to look at it. Is really to kind of, and I said it at the beginning, is to see where we can actually slow down and start to pick up some of these instinctive places of growing and nurturing our minds and our bodies. And it's kind of, it's something that we have been conditioned out of over all of the years. And I think, part of that is the dislocation with kind of where we have come from.
And I think something I wanted to add, as there was the prompt of, your name, where's your name come from? I think something we forget with food is like when you're purchasing your food, how often are we asking ourselves that question? What is the source of this? Even to the extent of, has this been ethically sourced? Have the people that have been, tilling the soil for this been compensated? Do they have enough to feed themselves? From that process of production. These are questions and things that, and in terms of, doing the little steps you can, I'm not saying just do a complete 180 pivot if that's just not where you're at, but just starting with that question, it can then open up that portal of like aligned action and clearing different habits. Like, okay, I'm thinking a bit more about this. Okay, I'm looking at what I can afford, but where I can get more ethically sourced things, fair trade, where I can get organic. And I think where there's a will, there's a way. One thing that stays with me, just bringing in one of my ancestors, is my granddad always used to say, your health is your wealth. And so I think having that mentality sometimes can help to steer you in that direction of intention, because intention is the first start and key to anything.
Thank you. That is super. So,
One thing that is coming from Dominican culture is old remedy. I remember in Jamaica, it is the service that we don't like service. My mom used to be raw, there's no honey, there's no sugar, it's like bang, take it, it's like, but as time goes by, I realized that was good for me. I cleansed out my body. So a lot of these natural medicine that, that parents and forebears, companies and users, that seems to be dying out. There don't seem to be any of that.
Bitter, there's like kind of spiritually and physically, you need bitters as well as sweetness. You'll find in a lot of traditional religions and traditional practices that you'll have foods you'll have the bitter stuff, you'll have the sweet stuff. Even if you do a spiritual bath, cleansing bath, you have the bitter to clear stuff, you have the sweet to call in stuff. But you need both, and I think a lot of us are forgetting that we don't want that medicine, we don't want the bitter leaf or whatever it is that we need, but it does wonders.
yeah. And I think that we're just kind of way out of balance, because the whole society is dripping in sugar. And so even if you think about it as a kind of, you know, the balance, we need some balance to that now, which maybe is kind of a little bit fresh or a little bit sharp or a bit crunchy or a bit juicy, you know. And I think that's also where kind of intuition comes in. We're so used to that being blocked and people telling us, or the television telling us, or, you know, doctors telling us, although I probably shouldn't say that. Sure, Chris? Yeah. Do something different in the morning there. We do have all of the capacity within us to kind of work it out. And we have all of the resources kind of back there to connect with, you know, to think about. And I think just the very basic principles of what you three have actually said tonight are just really simple things, like slow down and feel it. I'm going to think about you eating your melon and your mango and being slightly late for work. I'm going to really think about that, because it's very easy for me to go, oh,
Yeah.
or if I do, I get to work, you know. But that is just a really, really lovely, simple vision of how to start the day. I was like, oh, wow, that's good. We can kind of probably all find a mini moment to do something, you know, even if it's a slice of watermelon. Let's all go and practice with a slice of watermelon and see what we can taste and feel and touch. So that mindfulness, I think, is really, if we can find it, find a moment to do it, even if we're really doing it once a day to start off with, just somewhere we can start to really taste our food, to think about it, see what we can connect with in it.
Just going back to his point, I think this, very good point. I can remember so many like ailments that grandparents gave us. Like, do you remember Fuggy? And that was like this thing where if you were constipated, you'd get this spoon of stuff that tasted awful, but you were straight in the toilet. But we used to cry when we had it. Like, it worked. It's incredible. Like, and the idea of that dying out does like really sadden me. But I think ancient wisdom, like, we need to bring that back, because sometimes you need to just like look back at all those times to move forward. I know one of the sort of ideologies me and Nish kind of follow, not fully because it's like modern times, but like Ayurveda, which means literally like life knowledge, and it's the most ancient form, one of the most ancient forms of medicine. It's like 5,000 years old, and it's from India, and it's all about looking holistically at your body and thinking about prevention rather than cure. So in Western society, we look at medicine and you live your life, and then you mess about, and then you get ill, and then we try and treat it after you get ill. Whereas Ayurveda looks at prevention, so looking at how we live our lives from the start in order to prevent getting ill in the first place. And I think that's lost in Western society now. We really need to try and bring that back by eating healthy, breathing right, doing a bit of yoga and exercise and all of these little things. So.
It also comes down to the communication to elders as well, because we look at old people like they're a burden or a waste in our society, but that's the real knowledge, because it's the unfiltered knowledge, because it's personal, because it's someone's life experience, and you can't doubt it because someone's lived it, pre-media. So
it's also in you, somewhere along the line it is in you. So I would just like to ask everybody, do you have a bit of life knowledge that you want to share around food or health? Has anybody got anything that you would like to share?
yeah, let's go. Show people their sleeves.
Come on, tell
Auntie
me.
sleeves.
Chris.
My grandma swore by apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
I saw an article in, I think it was The Guardian, the other day. It's like, only now they're starting to talk about it. Is it good, is it not, is it wrong, is it right? But my grandma in Jamaica, she's sworn by it forever.
Yeah,
Always had a bottle of it in the fridge.
Good, okay,
Sure.
apple cider vinegar, and you take it as a
Yeah,
shot, do you?
it's good for blood pressure,
Yeah,
lower your blood pressure, so that's it's good for that.
okay,
It's like one thing as well, as somebody might open to, when you go to bed, it's a little bit, with some water, drink that, and then like bring your blood pressure down, like sometimes able to sleep better. But one thing I like to say is like, say, not just like diabetic, because maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that modern medicine, what they do, they find what you've got, and they give you tablets to maintain the way where you are. Is that the tablet is not a cure, but the tablet is just maintaining to keep you there. Yeah. But what people should do is go back to food as the cure. That is the medicine, the food, proper food. You know, so a lot of people, I'm not saying people stop taking the diabetic pill or anything like that. You know, I don't want to say that, but what they should do is to take time out to do their own investigation and find out, you know, other ways to go about, you know, curing yourself. Because back in the days, like the bush doctor his first claim is that your food is your medicine, and your food should be able to cure you.
yeah,
And also, it's like there's just starch because the GM food that block up your system. Because I've been told that if the body is more alkaline, your body can repair your human beings. The ones that are repairing is because it's starch and sugar and not natural. So the best, the more you can get natural food intake, the better it is for you to cure yourself.
yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to shout.
No.
Again, another one with the high blood pressure is moringa. I mean, like, which grows like abundantly all over the world. I mean, my family in Zimbabwe, they like, again, you know, our family historically has high diabetes, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, all these things, and you know they're looking for solutions. And then I said to my mum, like, surely they got, you know, you got moringa growing, no? And like we've only grown up eating the vegetable, like the drumstick, so like cooking it. But you know, I mean, there's a documentary called The Miracle Tree. It's all about moringa. Moringa is the winner. It's not Dr. Sebi approved, but
Wow.
because it's a young plant. But you know, it's a weed. It just grows anywhere. So if you go, it just grows everywhere abundantly. And you know, it took them, for me to talk to my mum, for them to talk to them. They've got moringa growing in the garden, and now you know their blood pressure's all lowered down, and it's, you know, what you've got around you as well.
We've got 2 trees, big ones in
They don't want you to grow, that's the best herb that can help you with everything. But you can't grow it. Everybody knows what herb that is. You know what I'm saying? That's the best one, because if you want to drink that at night, you don't need no stupid tablet. If not, you get up in the morning, you have to sit down and take these times. You understand?
Herbs are the healing of the nation, yes.
Straight across.
And they don't know they do it.
I can't remember what country is legal, and love is taking like a natural mix for so much human beings.
Now I'm thinking about drinking it, not anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so drinking it. I'm writing all of these down. Okay. Anybody else got anything that they would like to share?
About some Mediterraneans, olive oil in the nails
Yeah.
and the ears. You know, every culture's got it as well.
There was something that the panel mentioned about where you're coming from, look back to where you're coming from. And I've always been curious as to why I like the kind of foods I like. And it's when I did my family tree, or part of my family tree, I began to understand why I like certain foods. And so my diet is a kind of a mixture of foods from different parts of the world, based on where my family have come from now.
Okay.
And I might not be my healthiest, but I'm much healthier than some of my friends, for example. I'm much healthier than people my own age perhaps should be or could be. My body feels good, and I think that's partly my journey. And I'm still travelling along this journey with food and health.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Journey never stops.
The journey never stops,
Right.
you know, and I think that's that relationship of literally going back to yourself to kind of reclaim yourself after this big kind of diversion. It's kind of what we've all got to do, and it's okay, you know. It might even be fun. And you certainly look, you know, beautifully healthy on it. So, you know, I think that's really very, very good. So if you could pick a starting point for this tomorrow, what might that be?
Buy some melon.
Buy some melon.
Take home some melon.
Take home some melon. Yeah, melon. Anybody
Mindfulness
else?
as well.
Huh?
The mindfulness aspect as well.
Yeah.
Just I think just before eating, like my mum practices a lot of mindfulness and does Reiki coaching and leadership coaching and things. Just, you know, before your food, a little, you know, people pray before their food. Some people don't. I'd say probably the vast majority don't even think about prayer before their food. But my mum just says, what she say? On this plate, I see the existence of my entire universe. Just before eating, and I think just even the fact that you stop before, because it's so easy, oh, I need a drink, like it's gone, done, I need food, but just even, you know, that mindful moment just before you take food, the gratitude, again, it's just going to flick the switch for something that you just made a conscious change. It's not that deep, it's not that difficult. No one's saying you've got to do a headstand before you eat a melon or anything, but just a little 1-2 words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a 1-2 word of gratitude. And
Yeah, you're right, it does because especially people drinking water, because it's been scientifically proven that different sound will change water patterns.
Yeah.
So if you pray and say something, the water pattern will change, and that goes, it's like,
Yeah.
that's really true.
Thank you.
I think it would be helpful, I mean, it's based on what everyone said as well, but I think it would be helpful if we listen to our bodies more, like not just, like obviously in terms of food, but like everything, but at least with food, like it can be easier to notice when you should listen a bit more. Like obviously there are more like extreme things, like for example like IBS, like obviously listen, but smaller things sometimes when it's just like, oh, this makes me feel a bit run down, or this makes me feel a bit bloated, or like it doesn't always have to be a big scream and shout, like listen to the little things as well, because everything will end up adding up and making a difference.
Yeah. Grow your intuition. So that's right.
I would like to add to that as well. I think a big part of the relationship that we build with food is we also have to understand some of the subconscious scripts that have developed over time. Sometimes it's little things like our very well-meaning parents, but like you can't leave the dinner table till you finish your plate.
Yeah.
And you're full, but you've been disconnected from your intuition because your parents are telling you something else, okay? And your parents are doing that from a well-meaning place. They're not doing it to harm you, but in some ways it can create harm long term. So it is also about being able to do that work to undo some of that relationship that you develop over time, sometimes externally.
Yeah. Anything else from the audience? Because I think we've been here quite a long time, haven't we? Chit-chatting away. It's 8:45, so we'll take just a few more thoughts, and then perhaps we can just do like a couple of minutes summing up, and then I'll do you out.
I think we've done it.
I think we've done it. Yeah. Anything anybody else would like to share? God, I felt that you were going to say something before. But...
Oh, I was going to say my grandmother, my grandmother's Italian, and she used to make me eat a lot of an onion or raw garlic on toast.
Yeah. Yeah. Bit of raw garlic every day, so.
And a bit of wine with your water, even from a young age.
Yeah.
Sounds never do all of it. And it was more about the sharing and like participating.
Yeah.
In Italy, like all the little kids, not little kids, but like from a certain age, like it's about participating and sharing
Yeah.
and just having like a drop to like a Vimto amount.
Yeah.
I think, but
Yeah.
Strong winter.
I won't get around to this head enough. I was going to mention, what's your take on fasting as a faster? Yeah.
I think fasting is like, when we talk about understanding like the things that you have going wrong inside your mind, your body, everything, people are always like, I'm tired all the time or can't sleep enough. It's going to be boiled down to food. And the first thing when everyone tells me, oh, I've got this, I'm sick, fast. If you literally just empty out your system with fruits, water, water fast is great, sometimes a bit hard for people. I think a good way to do it is, okay, I'm drawing back to watermelon, but it's a good one to fast with because it's like 80-90% water. You have something to like masticate on, so you feel like you're eating. You don't feel like empty. And you're gonna go to the toilet plenty of times. You're gonna go for, either side, and you're gonna feel clear, and you're gonna feel high energy. You're gonna break out in spots, and you're gonna see all these things happen that are clearly a change. And I'd say the fast is just necessary for you to have a break, because we in a modern society we don't break fast. It's called break fast, but your first thing in the morning, people have a coffee, a cigarette, and a croissant, and you're like, where's it going to go right from here, I mean, that's just brutal, honestly, I think. And fasting seems daunting, but every single culture throughout the world, East Africa and Eritrea and Ethiopia, they have a lot, I think maybe 30, 40 kind of breaks through the year. In Hinduism, we've got 2 main ones, 9 days. And it's the same time as the equinox and spring and winter. And that same day is the same times as the Muslim fast as well. So these times, I think, in Christianity there's Lent, and I don't know what people do for Lent, but
So you eat 9 days of watermelon?
Our fast is a bit different. Again, every fast is different.
Okay.
It's about you as well. But I've done a 9-day watermelon fast, yes. Just eat watermelon for them days. I'll have a coconut maybe as well. But like energy is like, one prime example for me is like I played football, which I play regularly enough, but after a weekend, I like playing football, just eating watermelon all weekend, drinking watermelon, whatever shape or form, playing football on a Sunday, and I just noticed this, like, again, being aware for it, but just mental clarity. I just wasn't making mistakes on a football pitch that I might otherwise be doing. And whereas you go and versus another weekend where I might have like, I don't know, vegan pizza or something, and might have some Guinnesses in the evening, and then, your mental clarity is just not there. And those, you have to take yourself as a bit of a guinea pig because you're testing yourself. It doesn't make a difference about another person's journey, but yeah, definitely, if you can go a day just without, even mindfully just not eating a main meal and just having watermelon for a day, just fruit, you're not gonna, oh, how'd you do it? It's not, you can give it a try, you're gonna get through.
After 3 days, if you do a water fast for 3 days, you can work up to it. I think the main thing if you want to fast is you have to shift your diet first. If you have a lot of sugar, you're going to crash, you're going to feel it in your system. So you have to already start to work to almost like detox. So for example, if you were doing like just fruit and watermelon, but if you do like a 3-day water fast, you actually reboot your cells, you regenerate your cells in your body. And that's scientifically proven. There's like a whole video of this doctor talking about a lot of ailments that we have that can be reshuffled just from constantly like just doing it. I like to do it quarterly, like once every 3 months, just have a few days just to kind of fast, whether it be intermittent, 3-day water fast or 7-day water fast. I did Ramadan, I observed Ramadan for the first time this year as well, and I just think it's a very powerful connection. Whether you're spiritual or not, it's a very powerful process to encourage and invite into your life.
And it's funny as well, when you fast as well, back in the olden time, that's what we used to do, we would fast to cure yourself, because everything is shut down, and then where there is a weakness or something like that, so the body tends all the focus in that part, because there's no contract anything else that's trying to cure that particular thing. And also as well, when you fast as well, it's easier to try to go into a diet because then your body's like reborn again and you start doing big like a vegetarian diet, something like this. It's more easy to kind of like get all into that.
Wow. Okay. Well, a wealth of knowledge in this room. So thank you very much for sharing all of that. I think what we would like to do is to actually get a little bit more practical next time, and just talk about daily routines and what we can actually bring in more. What we've had tonight is fantastic inspiration from Danielle and Harsh and Nish. Thank you so much for that. And it's always a really good place to start with that inspiration and a sense of I want to do a bit of that. I don't know how I'm going to do a bit of that, but I'm going to try. And there is a huge amount of watermelon over there. So if there any of that is left in 10 minutes, I will be not pleased with people. But yeah, so we want to get a little bit practical. I don't know when that will be, but it would be very nice just to focus on kind of the daily things that we can bring into life and just begin to make small changes, which is about building a different relationship with our bodies, but also our souls, because I think it's, the body is the home for the soul. And yeah, let's see how we can kind of move towards how we look after each other and ourselves in kind of different ways. But thank you for your time. Thank you, Wayne, for space and for being here and opening us up and hopefully inviting us back again.
Yes, I'd love to. So I guess just a quick show of hands, people who learned, discovered, felt something today. Okay, great, thank you.
Always.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, second question. If you have something practical in your mind that you think you can go home and work on that relates to something that you heard or learned today, show of hands, something that you think a starting place? Most people? Okay. I'll share quickly, 20 plus years ago, I was having some health issues and I was never really a sickly person, so I went and saw sort of about mix between a doctor and a natural therapist, and he said, look, don't panic, just this week only, remove all of these foods from your diet and just use these foods, and it's basically watermelon, and I could have some greens. And so I think because he said it's just for a week, just for me to see something, I didn't think about it like it was going to be this big thing, just a week, I'm going to do it. And so I did it for a week, and I was completely shocked. I had never done anything like regulate my food ever prior to that. My parents used to put a mound of food in front of us, and we just went through it. But we were also quite active, we were young, and so everything got burnt off. But that week was the first time that I actually recognized that things disappeared in my body that I had gotten accustomed to, thought they were normal, but actually they weren't normal. And so that was a very simple way for me to go, oh, there's something else I need to be paying attention to. So I love what you said about the 3-day water fast. I would say choose something that's attainable, where you can get something started, because oftentimes we try to eat the elephant and then it's too much for us to do. So make the personal decision, because I think that's what's important. We don't put these on just to say we've done them. We want to change lives. We want people in our community to be healthier. And so that starts with being able to apply knowledge in a meaningful way.